Build a life worth living. 360 success. 360 success.
Well, welcome back to 360 Success Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ryan Knight, and today have I got a treat for you. We're joined by two PhDs that have developed this product that I was amazed. It seems so simple, but there's so much technology in it. And so today I have Dr. Jenny Hladek and Dr. Andriacchi, Tom Andriacchi. Both of you guys are from Stanford, I believe. Am I correct there too?
Yes.
Yes.
You guys have a company called Somatics, right?
Somatex
Yes,
is what we call it. Yeah.
Somatex. Let's start with how you guys got started. First of all, Jenny, let's start with you. So, Dr. Jenny, what kind of piqued your interest or got you even into this field?
Yeah, I actually went to work with Tom to get a PhD in biomechanical engineering. Loved science, loved engineering, but wanted to apply it to the body. So I went to work specifically with Tom because of the work he was doing at Stanford. So he had a motion capture lab where you actually get to apply engineering to study human movement, which was really cool, study diseases, especially at the knee. And so that's how I got into this field. I ended up doing, my first project was actually, my PhD project was a clinical study looking at a shoe for arthritis. So getting to actually apply engineering principles to develop a product that then was sold for many years that helped people who had arthritis. So that kind of started me into this field. And then I worked for many years at Stanford and at the VA hospital studying knee injuries, looking at ways that we can non-invasively kind of either reduce the amount of symptoms that people have or potentially alter progression of the disease or the need for them to have more invasive procedures or delay the time that they might need to have invasive procedures. And it was in that time Tom and I were working together that this idea came up of how can we modify people's pain by using something externally and use principles that we know from both engineering and neurology, neurophysiology to non-invasively help people to be able to function better and have less pain while they're moving for people who have knee pain.
So you've been doing this for a while as well. How did you get started?
Yes. Actually, I started in Chicago and I got a PhD in mechanical engineering, and I decided that the real challenge in the mechanical engineering was understanding the body and how the body moved. And I got a postdoc at a hospital. So it was an NIH postdoctoral fellowship as well. And the motivation was to study diseases that affected motion or ambulation. So I had the opportunity in an orthopedic department to set up a gait laboratory as well. And that department was interested in two things. One is osteoarthritis. And they started looking at total knee replacements as a method of treating it at the end stage. And the other thing they were looking at in that department was knee injuries and how that affected gait. And so I would, as an engineer and a novice in orthopedic problems, I would attend the weekly grand rounds of patients. And I would see patients that were presented there that had a knee replacement, and the surgeons were quite proud of the x-rays they showed of the knee replacement. And then I would watch the patient walking down the hall, and they limped. It wasn't restoring the function.
Yes.
And I would tell several of them, that's not something you like to hear, that the patient is limping. But the data then we did in the laboratory show that they had unique features of the way they walked abnormally. It was interesting because every patient didn't walk exactly the same way when they had pain, even pre-op or post-op. And there were certain characteristics that some patients had that did well in the way they walked. And then there were other characteristics where they didn't do so well. And if you think about it, it's like a car. You can look at the tires statically and say, oh yeah, those tires are going to be great. But the only way to know is watch the car running and see how the tires wear out and how there's problems. So by looking at the actual movement of these patients and the measurements we were able to make in the lab, we could pick up features of the way that the patients were doing well with certain treatments, or some of them that didn't even require treatment because they adapted a gait that was positive for the outcome of their disease. And if you think about it, osteoarthritis is really a progressive disease that progresses relatively slowly. And if you can slow that rate down by just modifying the way they walk, they may never need a severe treatment like a knee replacement. So over the years, many years, looking at the mechanics of walking and looking at ways of modifying it, one of the things we found, Jenny mentioned, was the shoe that would modify the stresses on the knee for certain patients. And that actually worked pretty well. Clinical trials were very positive for that. But then there were some other features, especially in patients with knee injuries, that actually were very similar to the patients with osteoarthritis that had gait characteristics that either affected their progression to more severe disease or no progression to severe disease. So over many years in the lab, when I moved to Stanford, we found and identified some key features, and we said, can we modify them? And I wanted to do it in a simple way where we didn't have levers and things like that on the body, severe brace. I wanted to do it where we engaged the neuromuscular system by stimulating sensory feedback to the brain at certain phases of the gait cycle that we wanted to modify. And we introduced gait theory, which I think we can explore more in detail later. Yeah. The fact is that what that did was it controlled during movement the kind of pain that the patients were sensing, and they were able to walk and climb stairs and do things that they couldn't do without that kind of feedback. And that's what led to the design that we have right now. There's a lot of details of the complexity of what went into that and the gait control theory and how we applied it. I have to admit, at the very beginning, I wasn't certain this was going to work. And if we didn't do this extensive clinical trial, which took several years to complete, I would have said, well, it was a nice laboratory exercise. But the results were so good that I said, this is better than I ever thought it would be. And I said, we had a laboratory prototype, but it wasn't a production model. And then so we formed a company after I left Stanford and started making this available to the public as well.
Well, excuse me, it is an amazing product, and we're going to get into that a little bit more. But talking about the gait theory of pain and how you manage that, being a chiropractor, I've been preaching that for a long time. And one of the ways I explain that, and I'll tell our audience, is, if you smash your thumb with a hammer, your natural instinct is to jump around, is to apply pressure and squeeze it, it's to shake it. And that is your built-in, God-given, whatever you want to call it, ability to modulate pain. And so science has been catching up with that and figuring out, oh, well, that's all neurology that we're bombarding, at the cord level with these different movements and different nerve fibers. And it's shutting down the ability for the brain to hear or perceive the pain. I use an example as well. I said, look, if I have a huge speaker over here that's 5 feet tall, and I have this little tiny Bluetooth speaker sitting over here in this corner, and I turn them both up to 5 on the same stereo, which one do you think you're going to hear? The big speaker.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Yeah.
And so that's exactly what you guys are doing here. And that's one of the things that drew me to it is at first I wasn't sure. And then I got it, and I got on the phone, talked to Jenny, and, we kind of geeked out a little bit over that neurology. And so I'm a huge fan of this thing already. And matter of fact, I can't wait for you to come out with other devices. We are putting together a conservative protocol for patients with knee pain. That's one of the things I've been talking to her about. And so that we can combine this with a home kind of stem unit and different things so patients can modulate their pain without taking so many medications, because it doesn't even matter if it's just NSAIDs like ibuprofen, but Tylenol also, between the kidney issues and liver issues of long-term use. And then if it's really severe, then they're doing steroid injections, which we know speeds up the degenerative process in the joint.
Right.
And rather than slow it down, it just knocks out the inflammation, but doesn't really do anything. Right. And then there's anti-inflammatory diets and things you can do on top of that. So that's where we come from. But let's talk a little bit about, so you guys started this in the lab. great results over about 10 years. I'd seen the studies, but I didn't know the period of time. So what was kind of the
Yes.
aha moment for you in the study when you're like, we really have something here?
Yeah, I think we did both subjective measures, right? We looked at pain and we saw improvements there, significant improvements. We did a longitudinal randomized study. So, and it was controlled. So we had patients wear either KneeMo for 4 weeks. They were randomized to that. They wore it for 4 weeks. They came in, told us about their pain, told us about their symptoms, but they also did functional measurements that we can pick up in the gait lab where we can actually specifically see what changes there are. And it doesn't require the patients to really tell us how they feel. We even just visually, you could see improvement in how people are walking. So something that happens when people have knee pain or osteoarthritis, prior ACL injuries, meniscus injuries, there's an inhibition to use the quadriceps muscle. And we know that the quadriceps are really important, right? They provide joint stability, support. They're linked to, if you have weaker quadriceps, progression of disease. And so we were able to pick up significant improvements in their quadriceps function during walking, during navigating stairs, which can be really difficult for people with knee pain. And we were able to see that the people who had better improvements in pain also had better improvements in this functional measurement. We can pick that up with our sophisticated equipment that we have in the lab. You could also actually just visually see the improvements on people both while walking, but also it was pretty drastic going up and down stairs, right? It can be scary for people with knee pain to go downstairs. You can see that, and we could see the better movement control. And we didn't see that after they wore the control device, which was just compression bands. You can buy them right off Amazon. We didn't see those same improvements after they did that for 4 weeks. So we had a control there where we could look and see like, KneeMo actually did provide a better stimulus to these individuals to have better improvements
For
in pain.
our audience, shoes are going downstairs, you'll see more of a twist because they're not firing their quads. They have this twisting gait down the stairs, and when their quads are firing, they're able to go more squarely, obviously probably hang on to it, but because their quads are firing, they're letting their body down step by step versus having to kind of pivot and drop and then pivot and drop because their quads aren't working correctly. And then you start to get, when they're not working correctly, one of the things we see clinically is all the other compensatory things. You start to see changes in adductors and all these protective mechanisms, or start to get IT band issues from the tensor fasciae lata muscle up here and glute medius. It's this huge, like I said, we don't need to geek out on that. I don't think our audience will be that interested in that stuff. But the fact that you see changes and you see activation of the quad with the vibratory stimulus it's huge. And you guys, I guess you've quantified it with EMGs, and you can visually see the muscles firing and the gait pattern changes. So like I said, we're excited you guys are already to market, but we're excited to help create awareness about this product because we're all about drug-free solutions because there's just too much of it. You mentioned working in the veteran system. One of our big things is helping the veterans and trying to not take pain medications. And, that's a huge issue. We talked about the science there. So going from the lab to a usable product, tell me a little bit about that, because you guys are your educators, your researchers, and going from that setting into this entrepreneurship realm and manufacturing and all that, what have been some of the struggles with that?
I could speak. Yeah. I could. There's in each of the upper and lower units, it consists of 2 bands, one that goes above the knee and one that goes below the knee. Each of those have about 50 different microchips in them to sense motion, to activate the vibration at the right time. And there's a processor that controls it all.
Which is amazing. I've tried to trick the thing. Sorry to interrupt you, but I put it on. I was running around the house, and my wife is like, "What in the world are you doing?" I messaged Jenny. I'm like, "Hey, it came today," and I put it on, and I've got some issues with my left knee, and so I was doing figure eights, and I'd run through my dining room, and she said, "Have you lost your mind?" And I'm like, "I'm going to trick this thing. There's no way it's this good." And I got the app, but I didn't even change any settings, and I think there was one step it missed, but it's like it learned, and it just. It's amazing.
Actually, what I call it is it had artificial intelligence before artificial intelligence was in vogue.
Yeah,
And one of the key things on that processor is an algorithm that was developed out of all of our research on gait mechanics, and that processor talks to a motion sensing device which senses angular motion and acceleration.
Is that similar to the gyro in a phone?
And multiple. Yeah, exactly. And in fact, what helped us was that same motion sensor. It's called an inertial measurement unit. is used in drones. And so the price for that went way down
Yeah.
for us. Problem was the availability of that chip also went way down. And you might recall a couple of years back, the chip shortage that was going on with the supply chain issues and things like that. So we hit a barrier with getting the right computer chips for the device. And we had a manufacturer that said, we can get some of them, but we can't get all of them. And it's going to be about a year before we get. Jenny and I couldn't wait a year for a lot of reasons to get these chips. So I offered to go out and find them in other markets than the ones that they would normally do. And what was happening when the chip shortage emerged was there were certain distributors that would buy quantities of these chips on speculation. So I found them and I was able to get all the chips. It took a bit of time, but it was well worth it because we could start the pathway to production with this device. So that was one of the barriers we faced early on.
So obviously you guys in your studies are the mechanics of the knee and you've tried to approach it from the foot and all that as well. But what was it that, I guess, was it the amount of people that you see with knee problems? I think this numbers are what, 65, about 50% of people walking around any given time, 45% maybe have knee pain. Am I right on that? Actually, in adolescence, I think it's maybe even a little bit higher based on some research I was looking over, depending on the group. But I think they said up to 65% of adolescents have knee pain. And then are those numbers correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that about right?
Well, we targeted for adults, and the kind of the data shows there's about 25% of adults that are limited to the point where they're seeking treatment for their knee pain. And, that's a big number.
Yeah, 300 million or so in the U.S., I guess, or 400.
That market,
yeah,
it would be.
Yes.
Yeah. So just a word about one other thing that takes place. That algorithm in there has to respond quickly because within a millisecond of when we sense the parameter we want to start to apply the vibration at that time. So one of the other things that was a challenge was providing an algorithm that picked all the right variables, had the intelligence that you tried to fool but didn't work out for you, respond very quickly.
I even tried side lunges. I was hopping side to side and it was doing it.
Yeah. I use it for tennis. Jenny uses it for running, and it works fine for those kinds of activities. We have someone that wants to use it for skiing here too.
Okay. So question, in academic setting, impact is measured by publication and success there. It's kind of that publish or perish thing they talk about a lot of times. But now that you've moved over kind of into the business world, it's about getting people to adopt your product and outcomes. And how has that mindset shift affected you guys coming from the academic realm over into, like I said, this entrepreneurial space or this kind of medical business space or product based?
It's a new world, I would say. For Tom, we had the shoe, so that was something that went out and became an actual product as well. And Tom's had several other things that he's worked on, joint replacements. But shifting that mindset's not an easy thing, right? When you're doing it for research, you're doing it because, really, it's your research. You want to come up with something really cool and you're curious and you want to find new solutions to things. But shifting to marketing, and especially in a world where you can sell direct to consumer, so marketing is very different than it used to be, right? It is a lot of social media, and we are trying to work with healthcare providers like you to spread the word. But we're in a space that we're a small startup dominated by big players, right, in the pain world. And so it's been a learning curve, and I think we're still very much learning about this. But it's exciting to actually have a product and to have gotten to that point. There's, it takes a lot to get something out of the lab and actually into a physical product that you can sell. And we have learned so many different aspects in this, which has been great. It's, we're constantly learning and learning new things, but it's, trying to get people to adopt your product is not easy, and trying just to spread the word is not easy. So that's really what we're focused on right now. We know we have something that works, and now we just want to get it.
And oftentimes in medicine, people think if it's not a prescriptive device, or if it's not a medication that requires a prescription, that it's not going to be effective, or that it's just, junk science or whatever. You guys have real science behind your product, and you're excited. to use it in our clinics, and I'll be telling everybody I know about it. So what would, there are other scientists out there that are sitting on products, ideas, and things that they've been researching or toying with that the market needs. So what advice would you give to them that maybe to encourage them to get out there and try to get their stuff to market so they can have a real world impact outside of the lab?
Well, I've had some experience with other devices. In fact, one of the first things that I was involved with was the design of a total knee replacement. What you have to come to the possible consumer of the product is obviously the science behind it is important because you got to believe in it first. All right. And if you have the belief that what you're doing is right, it still takes perseverance to overcome some of these barriers that we're talking about in terms of presenting a novel device. Because here we're saying, oh, just put this on and it does all the thinking for you. And it really does. It decides, like you said, when the vibration should happen and not happen. And it kind of looks on the surface like it's something very simple, but you have to kind of open the hood to see what the complexity of this device is. And that's one of the things that we're still struggling with a bit because people look at it and say, well, that looks like a knee band that I wear for patellofemoral problems or something like that. It's not.
It's not.
But we have to overcome that to some extent. And we're learning the key ways to do this. Both, I'm trained as a mechanical engineer. Jenny's trained as a mechanical engineer. Although I have to say, Jenny has learned a lot about marketing. I'm slow to pick that up myself.
Well, she has a face for marketing.
Exactly. I always tell her she should do all these podcasts. No one wants to look at me.
So have you been surprised? Do you guys have any professional athletes or anybody using your product yet that you know of?
We have some, I don't want to say, we have someone we know who's trying it, but it's really, like you said, it's spreading that awareness to get people aware about this and wanting to try something. The good thing about this, right, it's not going to hurt you. It's vibration. It's non-invasive. There's no medication side effects. And so, and another good thing that we were able to show in our studies is like, there's an immediate effect. And so people can feel that right away. And then we also actually saw an immediate improvement in quadriceps function. So it's not something where you have to sit, use it, take time from like your daily life to like try and get an effect over a longer period of time. It's something you can just kind of wear as you're doing your everyday stuff. And so that's where, yes, but we're trying to work with all athletes. Spectrum is big because, like you said, people with knee pain, it's a big range, right? It's from the younger athletes who have torn an ACL or something when they're in their teens or in their 20s and then half progressed to arthritis within 10 years. For the older spectrum who have established osteoarthritis, but still want to be active, right? I think that's the population where people are living longer, wanting to stay active a lot longer. And like you've mentioned, not really want to necessarily go to the extreme of an invasive procedure. And so we really want to be able to work with people and have people of all different ages.
And one of the things that we know, and you guys can confirm this, is that our pain threshold is not a static threshold. It fluctuates based on I guess it's based on membrane potentials and all this other stuff. I call it the central integrative state, or there's a resting kind of potential that when we can raise that further from triggering or raise our pain threshold for triggering by activity, it kind of drives it higher. Mm-hmm. The less active you are, the more it comes down and the more pain that you feel. And so these people that are inactive because they hurt are perpetuating the fact that they hurt and they hurt more. I mean, that was kind of a mouthful, but that's literally what's happened. So what do you guys see coming up? Obviously getting this product out to everybody we can, which I could see, especially my background or my postgraduate training is in sports medicine and rehab. And so understanding the quad firing. I mean, when someone has knee surgery, first thing we do is quad set exercises just to get the quads firing without knee flexion, right? And so super important. But are you guys planning on expanding? I saw on your website maybe looking at other joints and how this could be applied.
Yes.
I have some ideas for the shoulder, by the way. We can talk about that later. But because shoulders are
and the back. That's our next target. The same platform works for all those areas in terms of pain reduction.
Well, if you need any input from my field, I'd be happy to help with that.
I might be, I might want to show a
That'd be great.
prototype to you, and we can talk
And we're going
about
to talk about how people can reach out to you, and maybe I think we're going to give them a little discount if they want to order, and I'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah.
So as you guys are getting started and getting this thing out to the public, there are hard days. In 360 Success, one of the things we talk about is health is a huge thing. It's 4 pillars, really. It's faith, family, fitness, and finances. And so this falls under our fitness category. But sometimes days are hard. The bills still keep coming. Maybe product's not moving the way you want. It's not catching on as fast as you want. What is your personal why that keeps you getting up every day and spreading this message? Dr. Jenny, you want to answer that first?
For me, it's the impact we've seen when people have used this, right? Even me personally, I use it on every run because I've struggled with anterior knee pain. And if I didn't have this, I'd be really sad because I use it to be able to run longer distances, which for me, running is like my stress release. Kind of like you said, it helps actually my fitness and my kind of mental state. They go together, right? It helps you. And on those hard days, I like to get my run-ins. And it's seeing the impact it had for people in our clinical studies, but then people who are also using it. And I think there are definitely those hard days, right? But it's that end goal of knowing that we have a product that can help a lot of people. And there are a lot of people who have knee pain that just want to be able to do those activities that they love, right? But they can't do them. And so for me, that's, we're going to keep trying every avenue that we can to spread the awareness of this, because we know we have a product that is backed by the science and we've seen the outcomes. So that's kind of, for me personally, what keeps me going.
Dr. Tom, what about you? What's your why?
I mean, for me, it was actually seeing people put this thing on, try it, and their face turns to a smile because the pain goes away, because they can walk with it. And we're going to keep plugging at it. I mean, we have had some hurdles to deal with, and sales haven't gone as quickly as we would hope. But, perseverance pays off in this field. It's my experience. So we're going to stick with it because we know it can help a lot of people. We have a good thing. It's got 3 peer-reviewed papers behind it. Very few devices like this have papers of that quality that went through peer review to support it. So we know it works. We've seen it work, and the testimonies are outstanding. If we could set up a shop someplace where people could just come in, try it, and when they try it, they like it, they can buy it right away. You're looking at 2/3 of the company right now.
Well, I understand that. Starting a business 30 years ago from nothing. I understand those days where, I was just waiting on patients to come in. I didn't know about marketing. Matter of fact, 5 years in, I was bankrupt in practice. And back then I couldn't order MRIs or anything. It was like I might as well have 2 heads as a chiropractor. But I will tell you this. You guys have a great product, and people need what you have because the options out there aren't a lot of great options outside of surgery and drugs, which the side effects of those aren't worth the payoff. But if we can get people active, what I would like to tell people is if you haven't, or if you think that there's no hope and you haven't tried this, I would say you need to try KneeMo and try to get moving. And if you can get moving with less pain, you're going to feel better. And then you're going to continue to get better and better and better if you stay after it. And so I appreciate what you guys are doing. And I appreciate you coming on the show today because, we want to help people. Our tagline is to help people build a life worth living. And, most people don't think about after an injury or whatever, when they sit down and they get stiff and then they get to where they can't hardly move and then they don't want to move. And then it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point if they don't decide to do something different. You guys' product gives them an option to do that without, like I said, the drugs, the surgery. And I'm super excited. So if somebody out there had knee pain and you wanted to get the message to them, what would that be?
Try it. You'll like it.
I think it's just, I think it's the importance of movement. It's what you said, right? Like it's important for joint health, but it's also important for your overall health. And I think people get stuck in that, it hurts, maybe I shouldn't do it or I can't do it, but this gives you an option.
And people don't realize
keep moving
something like knee pain. It creates more stress when you can't get around.
Yes.
And then that stress raises your cortisol levels, which then that has a whole cascade of events that happen in your body.
Yes.
So something that comes in a box this size can be life-changing if knee pain is keeping you from getting around doing what you need to do. And so, again, I'm excited. I hope that this gets in every physical therapist's office. I hope it gets in every orthopedic surgeon's office. That's something they can recommend to patients, every chiropractor that treats extremities as well, because I think you guys are really onto something here. And like I said, our patients are going to be getting it. And we just want to help you get the message out so that other people and more patients all across the country can get it. I guess internationally too.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate you guys
And,
coming. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, in some countries, the use of drugs and even joint replacements are not a positive thing for them. And something like this that relieves pain, slows down the degenerative process, can be extremely beneficial. So, yeah. And I have to say, we appreciate your comments because we go through the low spots as well. And when we hear someone like you talking about it in this way, it helps us. So thank you.
Well, and I don't just recommend things, just because, as Dr. Jenny, I'm like, can you send me the research? What's the battery life? And I'm checking this thing out. And I try everything on myself before I recommend it to patients. We started a neuropathy protocol, and I have some neuropathy in my right leg from an old back injury. And, I did that for 4 months before I'd ever even talked to a patient about it, and just to see what the results were. And so, that's been fantastic too. But I appreciate what you guys are doing. Keep up the great work, and we're going to try to help you get the word out. And again, just thank you for being on here today. I know you guys are busy, and I just really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Yes.
Thanks for having us.
Build a life worth living.